actually gonna start recording in case we do experience some internet problems. Best of 5 from Wardi's replay pack. You can go to his channel, subscribe there, get into his Discord, and have access to the same replay pack. If you think you can cast this better, I dare you. I triple dog dare you. Or just support an awesome StarCraft 2 content creator. In the top left, as the Blue Terran, he is Clem. And he is facing off the bottom right against this definitely good Protoss player. I'm not going to say anything about his physical appearance. It is the red Protoss Zest. He's definitely good. Good player, good play, good. But in all seriousness, he's also quite handsome. Also, his good play is actually legitimately, for realsies, a little in question. He's not been doing so hot. His Elima League runs have been stopped short by names you don't recognize, names you do recognize and assume that he would win against. He's no longer a PvP magician, and I'm not sure what we're gonna see here in this best of 5 against Clem. This would be on the central circle of US if it's anything like, you know, most other tournaments that happen between two regions. Europe versus Korea, middle ground is terrible for both, but at least it's terrible for both. So there's, you know, it's not the top tier player T from like an offline game, but still pretty damn good stuff. And I think a lot of players have gotten somewhat used to dealing with those conditions. Some players more willing to play in those conditions than others, for sure. Recently cast a series on my YouTube, Clem versus Fantasy, TVT, if you want to check it out. I want to check out my YouTube, and this will be uploaded there as well, in case you gotta go, or you have a friend who wants to see it, I don't know. But Clem did not do so hot. Semi-spoiler. This is, I think, part of the same series, same tournament, although I can't find out right now where exactly in the tournament this has taken place. But it is recent. It is pretty recent. We do have the very obnoxious wall here from Zest. You can do whatever you want behind this, because you also wall off the Reaper hop-up spot, and just do whatever you want. But in this case, it looks like Zest goes for a little bit of aggression with this adept shading forward. Is actually looking more towards the Twilight Council and possibly just a very standard follow-up. Zest, even though I think his best matchup has been PvP, I've always thoroughly enjoyed and tried to replicate his PvT. He was the first to kind of like hop on the mass gateway train, and then he was the one to use it the most in my eyes, and to the best of its ability occasionally. If you exclude all those times he basically almost dies before his gateways are all finished, then he uses it pretty well. This is annoying harassment, but the Hellion opener from Clem can actually be quite good at dealing with this. You are guaranteed to chase down every single unit because the Hellions outrun everything. The downside is that Hellions are not very good in straight up fights of more than 1 or 2 units. So as a third unit comes here, the second stalker comes forward, he does need to temporarily retreat. Seeing that pylon being built at his third is a little scary as well. And it looks like Zest was actually going to use that to build shield battery. What? Alright, so it is a typical build as far as the Twilight Council here, but very atypical in terms of the proxy gateway, shield battery coming down. Clem going for some harassment-based builds with the Hellions, can deal with early harassment, that's fine, that's okay, but he can't really deal with an actual attack, which apparently is going to happen here. Not that Zest is getting a ton of gateways or really stopping probe production, he is delaying gases, but it's still all proxied and it's still the main focus of his production, so it's definitely aggressive. To lose to this would be, it just would feel bad. It would feel so bad, but it absolutely happens to any Terrans out there. Now, Zest realizes what's happened here. He might have heard the pickup, might have seen the pickup, and he knows the Hellions got to be somewhere, and they are on the way to his natural. So he recalls to the main. Blink's not quite done, but all I need to do is body block these Hellions, who cannot escape, by the way, as the medevac is shot down. Only 4 Hellions, maybe 5 Hellions will go down. Sorry, 5 probes will go down to the 4 Hellions. And that is not really worth the Hellions plus the medevac dying. It does get the monkey off of Clem's back. The stalkers are gone. They can't be recalled back here, so we can actually just clean this up. But as I was trying to say before, like, Zest isn't really pushing a ton of things off to do this. Like, he is. That third gas is late. The double forges could already be put down. The robo could already be put down. But, you know, he obviously has not really stopped probe production. His third Nexus is actually almost done. This is still like a macro attack. So even though Zest isn't doing much with the attack right now, and it's bought Clem time to get to a couple of tanks, I don't think Zest is in like a bad position. But it's definitely an interesting game, because Zest was not growing his probes. He was not getting those additional upgrades, so the SCV count is actually quite good for a Terran, which we don't usually see. He is going to be contained for a little while. That's the bad news, as this stim has to finish. No second tech up for combat shields quite yet. There it is. And that'll buy Zest time to get to charge and at least +1 armor. Well, we've seen some Protosses get +1 attack with this. Okay. I don't quite get it when a single forge comes down and then you get +1 attack with this composition. But we had Crater do that and some other Protoss do that. Glad to see just the armor. That's what I expect. Third Nexus is getting filled up here. And Zest is just sticking to those 3 gases, so just non-stop production of the gateway units and then a couple of Immortals here and there. Stalker's gonna pick off a Marauder, a Medevac, a Raven if it was built. Absolutely, would love to do that. But they also are just looking to delay a potential tank push. Clem doesn't necessarily have to bring the tanks to have a decent attack, a little bit of a poke with the army that he currently has, but it's units, you know, he could bring them forward and they would help. If he wanted to go for a drop, he could go ahead and risk that. He's just going to go for the direct push and have to be very careful about guarding all those very important, expensive, slow building units. So he's pretty much done producing tanks, which is what we'd expect. Tanks used to be something that you would build and then either all in with or, well, all in with, let's be real, there's a lot of those. Now they've really just come back down to being defensive units. Like, I get them because I'm under attack, and then I swap over to Widow Mines, which is exactly what Clem's done here. So he does have some Widow Mines with the attack. Marauder's slow not quite done. Some Stalkers go down. Lots of Stalkers very weak. Did Zest manage to buy enough time to get to enough Zealots? He's got a couple of Immortals. He does have that +1 armor to combat the +1 attack of Clem. Can he take the fight? I absolutely think that he can, even with the Widow Mines popping off really nicely, actually. Oh my god, initially only like 2 or 3 Zealots are gonna get popped off by those Widow Mines, and then the rest of them were like, hey, look, a pretty butterfly, and they all fucking died for it. Ouch. That was supposed to go a lot better. Zest will not die here, but he will lose all the Stalkers, which aren't supposed to be lost. They're supposed to live, the Zealots are supposed to die. Ditto for the Immortals. Immortals supposed to live, but it was picked off, and the 1 or 2 sentries he had too. So not what Zest was looking for. But Clem only escapes with a handful of those ground units. Does escape with most of his Medevacs. That's really nice. And does have a 3rd CC now lifted over. Not an orbital though, so it does feel overall late. He scouts that Zest already has a 4th base, so that not being an orbital, not having a ton of SCV transfers, this still doesn't feel the best for Clem. As Zest is going to have a decent amount of time to replace what is the more expensive Stalkers, but he still will have the economy to do so. Is it weird to crave cereal at 11 p.m.? Absolutely not. I constantly crave cereal at odd hours. I think it reminds us of our childhood. You know? There was like a shower thoughts recently that was like a child eating cereal. No, a child eating ice cream alone at 3 in the morning is a great day for that child. An adult eating ice cream at 3 in the morning alone is a really bad day for the adult. Yeah. Sometimes cereal is almost like a comfort food. Wouldn't mind drop to that 4th base, severely unguarded, and Zest has no idea. Very late pull on those probes, making it even worse, probably, than if he had not pulled at all. 12 probes go down, but Zest continuing to expand to a 5th base. He has been torn down in the probe numbers, that's for sure, but he also doesn't need as many probes as we would expect, because he's not mining from every single gas. Clem is understandably going into Ghosts. It helps against the current composition, and will help against the usual follow-up, which are those High Templars. Not that Zest has thrown those down yet. He is thinking just pure gateway army, pure Zealots, couple Stalkers, and upgrades. But his upgrades really are not that impressive. It looks like Clem has been stalled out here on 1-1, so they're more impressive than I think they should be. I actually thought Clem was going to be able to get 2-2 around the same time and be totally fine, but Zest is still getting that upgrade lead we see a lot of times in this matchup. A bit of a surprise from Clem. I don't think he expected to see the army in the middle of the map, but doesn't lose any of the expensive units. He's got to take a defensive stance, however. Lots of warpins coming through here. He's got the proper army for it. The Wood of Mines, be careful not to splash on his own army. And for Zest, he needs to go ahead and micro against that, which he absolutely does. Most, if not all, of the Wood of Mines have been popped off here, but lots of the Zealots still live, using the Blink Stalkers and their Blink ability to the best that Zest can. And he's got a lot of ability to do that, actually. When he has Stalkers, he's pretty good at using them. And he has replaced all of those Stalkers and then some after that initial attack. There's another drop to the top right, but a cannon will help take care of that. Not nearly as many probes died there. I think Clem might just be on the ropes. Here comes more of his army, though. I was wondering how he's still staying at such a high army supply. There it is. Don't know where it went off to. The Wood of Mines also getting some pretty decent shots. EMPs had gone down. This time probes did die. Looks like to the Liberators that went across the map to do some harassment, but I'm still liking Zest's army, especially as his 2-2 finishes, and it is now officially done. A couple force fields to slice off 3 or 4 Marauders is really good addition, as well as the Guardian Shield. Very important to those Zealots. But Zest actually not very Zealot heavy. Most of them have died to the Wood of Mines. And it looks like he's even been replacing some Stalkers occasionally, not just full on to the Zealots, but he needs them to warp in soon. Stalkers upgrades are good, but they need the buffer, and they need the charge lots on the front lines as well. This Tug-Of-War is actually pretty damn close here. If the Warp Prism ever gets attacked, that could be really bad news for Zest. But he is holding strong. EMP on the heart of the army. Warp Prism included, Immortals included, so no barrier for them. Quick pickup with the Warp Prism, though, is providing a lot of extra life to those Immortals, to those Stalkers, an extra blink, if you will, but the Wood of Mines finally get some decent shots on top of the army, not just the Zealots. This is actually so damn close, but perhaps the upgrade's really kicking in. Clem still no 2-2 in sight. He even built an armory. He didn't. He didn't even build an army. He never built a second engineering bay. He is all in on 1-1, despite having a 4th CC on the way. He scans both of these bases and sees, oh shit, Zest does has a 5th. But it's not actually mining, so is it the biggest of deals here? Zest also not transitioning, by the way. Talking about upgrades, talking about tech. Zest has no High Templars. He has no Colossus. He doesn't even have a second Robo to start producing 2 Immortals at a time. He is still all about the Zealots and the Stalkers, and EMP, once again, blanketing the Zealots, especially what they want to do there. The Immortal count has been cut down to just 1. With 4 in Zest's army, he was so good against the very high Marauder count. But now he's depending entirely on these Stalkers to be able to burst them down. What is this whole position? Oh, that was so weird. What? That was so weird. I guess in an emergency, hold positioning your army so the Zealots don't collapse on the Wood of Mines is the best thing to do there. But, ooh, that looks so awkward. A lot more Zealots coming from the 3rd base, however, coming to save the day, save their Stalker brethren. Which that count of Stalkers, it was at like 15, I think, in the middle of the map. Now down to 7. And down to 7. Another Immortal pops up here. Zealot's trying to go for not just the attack, but also the wraparound. That's when the real damage is done by the Protoss player. Oh no, no blink! No blink was available. Wood of Mines getting some fantastic shots on those very expensive Stalkers, the things that he doesn't want to replace, and he is actually not even replacing them. He just made like 10 more Zealots. There's 2 Stalkers in this army. 2, that's it. Clem finally found the resources to go for 2-2, but literally just now a 3-3 is on the way for Zest. Still no High Templars in those Warp Prism. Probably Clem's like, where are they? Are they in there? Nope, just Immortals. Oh geez, the action doesn't actually ever stop, does it? Clem is on 4 bases now with the planetary being made. So he can continue rallying forward here. It's Zest, despite being on 5 bases, it's actually running out of steam here. Without those Stalkers to get a couple of those last crucial hits to actually chase down a lot of this army, he is starting to be spread a little too thin. More Wood of Mines getting some great shots on the Zealots, leaving them very, very low. Still some EMPs available as well. And Clem is just rallying forward with how many production? Probably like 8 barracks worth of production. Whatever Wood of Mines he can surround together as well. And remembering to add in 1 ghost per production round. That's actually really, really key. A lot of people would stop doing that and forget to get them. And they are kind of evening out what is now going to be a 2-2 upgrade deficit. They were really helping to even out that deficit. +3 armor is about to finish. Zest reinforcing with just more and more Zealots. Trying to go for maybe a wraparound, a big surround, but it's not going to work out. Wouldn't mind trip him up on the backside as well to get some pretty decent shots. Zealots on the front side get taken out before the rest of the army can even come through here. So many of these medevacs are actually very low and no longer helping, but the EMPs go down. How is this War Prism still alive? How is that Immortal still alive? But it is. Zealots just barely enough buffer with that +3 armor to continue forward, and more Zealots being warped in. It's all about the Zealots now, apparently. Blink is off cooldown, it looks like, as the Stalkers go down. There it is now, but the Immortal gets sniped instead without anything to protect it. Oh god, how is this actually still going through with this? I would have backed away ages ago. Jesus. Stop fighting each other. I want to talk about things. Oh god, geez. Zest only at 64 probes is really not the most consistent mining, and his bases are also starting to get mined out. If he had at any point gotten double Immortals, gotten to Disruptors, even if he had tried getting to High Templars, right? The EMPs are supposed to counter High Templars. That's what we think of them first and foremost, and then they also add a bunch of damage to everything else. Even with that in mind, the addition of High Templars, especially in a War Prism, for instance, is just, it can't be understated. One storm could have made a big difference in any one of these fights, and it's very possible to get at least one storm down despite being up against EMPs. Zest actually goes for a very aggressive maneuver across the map. A lot of Clem's army is very low. Medevac's not getting the appropriate amount of time to heal them all up. Most, if not all, actually all the Zealots are dead. The Immortals are dead. The Stalkers continue to live, trying to get the Blink out there. And they will be able to retreat. Zest needs to just buy time now, though, as he's been down in supply for so long in this game, actually, but his upgrades are making this army look so good. It's the upgrades compared to the micro, compared to the EMP, compared to the instant reinforcements for the War Prism that's making this the longest Tug-Of-War I've ever seen. Really getting a lot of practice play-by-play casting, so thanks, guys. Jeez Louise, 17 minutes and just going at each other's throats for the last 9 minutes. Pretty sure. Oh boy. EMP on the Zealots before they even get their charge off. Some Stalkers go down. Looks like the medevac production has been maybe halted. It was halted for a little while there. Currently only at 5. And again, a lot of them very low. They're scanned on what would be the 6th base. And at this point, he is checking to see how long Zest can keep up with this type of army, and the answer is not very much longer. Zest is fully saturated his top right base, which is still very healthy, but his first 4 bases are almost entirely mined out. Thank you very much, Ragnar Raquette, for that host. You guys have missed 10 minutes at this point of constant back and forth action. Finally, something else is happening. Clem's been doing little bits here and there with the Liberators and Widow Mines, but Zest finally getting something done with the Zealots on the left side, or maybe not. Attacking to the front as well. Not looking so hot for our Red Protoss as the EMPs go down, the Widow Mines go down, and again, nothing to really support here. Not even Immortals this time to support this army. Clem has also finally gotten to his 2-2, and has once again at least evened up the upgrades a little bit for a little while there. It was a total of 4 upgrade deficit. Now it's down to 2. And with the EMPs, the Widow Mines, Clem should really start taking these fights. I think he should have started taking the fights 5 minutes ago if it wasn't for the upgrade difference. Clem also expanding once again from his main base. That's his main orbital, but it still counts. Whereas Zest has not expanded despite having quite a big bank. He's trying to use it all on those Zealots, but he's never getting the golden opportunity. He's never getting that golden surround with the Zealots that really make them super effective. Clem's always microing and always doing a very good job of macroing the upgrade aside. And that even looked like it was on purpose. It looked like Clem wanted to stay on 1-1 for as long as he did. Things have finally calmed down for a second. Zest has not taken the opportunity to advance his technology, which like, at some point, you would have expected the Terran to be broken. I'm with Zest on that. A lot of times they are broken. The upgrade difference is too much. The Zealot reinforcements are too quick compared to the Marauders and the Marines. But Clem has not been broken, and the army of Zest is supposed to get worse. Especially as the upgrades finish up here. +3 is about, 30-40 seconds away from finishing. I think Clem has figured out that he's got this game if he's not going to make any foolish maneuvers. He's not taking any damage from those run-bys, and he's still taking good fights on the front lines. Once again, finding a lot of Zealots, not really doing any damage to him. Force fields not really helping, or maybe they are. He does pick up to retreat from them as more zealots are warped in, but that supply, I think, is telling the tale. About half the supply here for Zest. Looks like his zealots are once again cleaned up without doing too much damage. Zest trying to keep up with his upgrades, getting shield, which is usually fantastic. I mean, it's an upgrade. It is an upgrade for every single unit in the Protoss arsenal. It's good to get, but it's usually really good to get because you're starting to include Archons in your composition. No, not in this game. No Archons. No. Trying to use the Warp Prism Micro 20 minutes into this game. That's bold. That's usually not gonna happen with Immortals. This is probably gonna be the last fight. +3 attack is done for Clem, so upgrades really and truly evened up. Just missing that armor, but the EMPs are making up for it for sure. The army type of Zest just isn't good enough anymore, and that is it. Clem takes game number 1 after 21 minutes, and I can't even imagine what his wrists feel like right now. His wrists have got to be dead, both of their wrists. Don't you just, like, both forfeit the next game? Jeez Louise. From where is this match? This is a Wardi TV replay. But I don't know what tournament. Thank you very much, Crypto Compare, for the Twitch Prime sub. It's like watching an ARAM game without the heroes. Yeah. I mean, to think that Clem was also doing those little bits of harassment, though, and getting his bases set up. I mean, the micro on the front lines from Zest was impressive. You saw when he messed up. You saw when Clem messed up. But for Zest, a lot of that game was actually already settled when he got to his 5 bases. You know, he got 5 bases. He got like 15 gateways. And all he really had to do to look back at his house, his home, was to start up his upgrades, which he was very good about. He was like pretty much instant. But there was like no harassment until the last 4 minutes. There was no additional production, I think, at any point. He never added any other robo, any other tech. Clem was expanding, producing, changing things in the planetary, dropping his command centers, harassing with the Liberator, harassing with the Widowmine. I actually think Clem played a more impressive overall game. And I'm glad that he won that. But both of them really showing what can be done with those compositions. I think it would have been a different story if storms were involved as well. As I said in game, like 1 storm is all you need to change those battles. And it's very difficult, not impossible, for a Terran player to completely get rid of storms against someone who can use a Warp Prism effectively. It's really hard. You can get rid of 95% of the storms, and then there's just 1 with just barely enough energy that still gets you. But Zest just didn't want to do that. Zest was like, no, I'm going to win with this. I just have to wait for my upgrades to kick in. And they kicked in, but he still didn't win it. And he was probably like, but my upgrades. Sorry, man. Ay. I need a break from that one, man. That's what can happen, though. I mean, I really love that the mass gateway style exists, even though sometimes it feels like bullshit. Sometimes they do that style, and you, especially as a not professional Terran, your macro isn't perfect. You're kind of missing those crucial timings. Your presence on the map isn't perfect, so you miss where the army's coming from. And you just get absolutely clobbered. You're just doing a normal thing. You're just doing a normal Terran build that should have at least 1 attack that you just poke in with, okay? That's what you're supposed to do. But they execute the simple build better and just warp in a bunch of zealots, and you're like, well, shit. That feels bad. And what also feels bad is thinking they're going for the macro version of that stuff, and they're actually going for an all-in version. Both feel terrible. Basic gateway units, come on, I'm supposed to beat that. But I actually love what this has done for possibilities of the matchup. For a time, this was all everyone ever did. Zest was no unique person in this regard. It's what everyone was doing all the time. And then people brought back their robos. People brought back Colossus, even a couple disruptor drops every now and again. For some reason, Neeb seems to like them. What else do we have? We have a couple of all-ins that still exist, right? Some 2-base stuff. Even Adept all-ins came back for like a brief little blip there. You still get a lot of possibilities of this matchup. And it's something as exciting as that, where gateway units, even though they feel like, you know, Charge is really cool, dude, like, oh, good job. They actually just feel so much more impressive to watch than what used to happen 7 years ago, which was a bunch of Colossus, like, and not really cool. So I'm happy that it exists, and it's my preferred play style when I play Protoss. And it's usually Zest's preferred play style. The internets. But, as I say that, as I talk about the playstyles, Stargate opener here from Zest on game number 2. Clem opened up last game with a Hellion opener, which he could still do here if he swaps off. We're just going to wait and see for that. Playing very defensive with the bunker. Not that Zest actually has anything coming across the map. The Clem has not been able to scout what his opponent's going for. The Reaper has him blocked from getting to that high ground. So his best bet will be to defend initially against an Oracle. Just put the Wood Mine in the mineral line, and you're good to go. And then once the Oracle timing has come and gone, pick up and do your Wood Mine drop. We are getting a pretty fast second barracks here from Clem. So Stim is going to be pretty darn fast. Very slight differences in these follow-ups of the 1-1-1, but they do exist. But we see, like, what the build I do is, like, 2 barracks at once, and then you get Stim and combat at the same time. We saw, I think, from Dream doing the fast second barracks, where you get Stim very, very quickly. So your attack is quicker, but it doesn't have combat shields. You know, there's a few key differences that the Oracle will want to go ahead and look for. The Oracle is not really expected to do much damage anymore. It's kind of lame now. Ooh, hudda, hudda. I heard a Wood Mine somewhere. Apparently not here, though. It was over there? What the hell? What happened? Oh, there it is! Oh, God, I was like, what? Excuse me? I heard it burrow. I did. I just burrowed off to the north side. So 4 SCVs go down for just the one. I guess this was the Reaper throwing a grenade. Is what I saw. Oracle did more than expected, but still not a whole ton. That was the old Oracle. You just tap out of the game right then. Right there. Another Oracle was produced alongside a Phoenix, so scouting will still not be an issue, and Zest does have a 3rd Nexus on the way, getting to the additional tech. And still continuing to build Phoenix, so we'll have Charge coming out first from the Twilight Council. Thank you very much, Borsi. Yeah, I am recording this, so if you don't want to deal with the internet problems, the stuttering, whatever it's doing, the complete drops that could happen, you can just wait and watch this on my YouTube. Alright, there's a Charge. It's +1 armor. Phoenix will provide what the Blink Stalkers usually do. Although it looks like Zest's not going to bother to build too many. So drops really aren't super popular anymore in this matchup, it feels like. Like, they still exist, obviously. Terrans will always drop. Always. But it's not really something you immediately do, especially against someone you don't know for sure isn't going for a bunch of Phoenix. So, Phoenix does come out. Maybe he'll go up to 5, but he's not exactly, like, expediting this, right? The Phoenix are more so for making sure that the medevacs do get taken out. The ability to lift some key units as well, like Wood Mines, is really, really helpful. And to at least say, no, you cannot drop, even if it wasn't the Terran's ID anyways. I wasn't gonna drop anyways, whatever. Well, the Phoenix makes sure that doesn't happen, or at least they hope they do. And they provide some decent scouting if the Oracle's not getting a Revelation, which the Oracle currently is not doing anything except hanging out with the Phoenix, and none of them are scouting. So Zest doesn't see this army moving out at all. And it is that faster sim attack that I was talking about. Combat ship's only just now on the way. So this seems like a big ol'... Uh-oh. Some Zealots being warped in, an Archon being warped in, a shield battery is done. Widowmine's actually... Ooh, he was gonna go for the drag over the Marines, but good counter micro from Clem. Doesn't mean only one Widowmine actually got the shot off, though. Oh, I'm sorry, two did. And a third and fourth one live, actually, because they were lifted. That's what happened. So still looking pretty good for Clem here. Oh, no, actually, that might be it. That might be it. Zest had no idea the attack was on the way, and even though he thought an attack was going to come, it eventually does, he actually wasn't totally prepared for that one. And just good TVP push there. Appropriate, you know, lifting of the Widow Mines, and I don't even, like, he didn't even deny the scouting. I was gonna say denial of scouting, but he didn't even do that. Zest just didn't even scout. That was totally on Zest. Like 120%. That's why that game looks so easy. Zest is best is... I love Zest. Love his playstyle. But he has not been doing so hot recently. Apparently, Kara Corvus, streamer and cosplayer, is having the exact same issue as me, internet-wise. So I'm currently tweeting at her. You can get ZG replay cast. You could if you're subbed, yeah. You can do it for next week. Actually, next week, my subscriber replay cast will be on Wednesday, I guess. All right, in the top right, as the blue Terran up 2-0, it is Clem. In the bottom left is the pink Protoss. He is Zest with no points on the board. Not having such a good time. Tries a different style last game and pretty much just completely fails with it. Like, not to be harsh. Not to be harsh, but also to be harsh. That's exactly what you would see from a person who was told, hey, Stargate's a build. You should try it. And then Zest tries it and has like never done it before and is like, well, I did make the units, what's the problem? And it's like, well, you know, you forgot to do everything else that you're supposed to do with that. Which is very odd. You know? You can only critique pros so much because there's always a decision being made that is logical in one sense or the other. There's always something that is distracting them, so there's only so much multitasking any human can do. You know, you're always prepared to be like, well, that was a mistake, but it's understandable. I actually look at that last game and I'm like, why? His units were just, I think they were just looking for the Widow Mine drop. They never came. But that is not good. A Widow Mine drop can be microed against even if units aren't there. Is it great when you actually get the Widow Mine drop and just kill it instantly and you're like, heh, got him, yeah, but you also need to actually scout what your opponent's doing. So, very, very odd. I think it's also perhaps one of those things that, like, where Clem did do the faster version of that push, and Zest was expecting the bit slower version of that push. I don't know the exact timing differences. I wish I did. But compared to stim fast and then stim combat shield at the same time, there's some difference there. But he didn't even try and get a follow-up scout. It was really, it was like watching someone not do anything and just being like, well, you died. So I'm not gonna speak out of it anymore. Mistakes were made. Zest is down 0-2. The first game was a lot cooler, a lot more back and forth. Last game, not so much. So Clem gets the confidence booster of the first game, which was probably one of the toughest games he's played in a while. And then he gets the just, oh, like, who am I even playing? Like, is this gonna be hard? The second game where he just absolutely slapped Zest down. Now Zest has another build up his sleeve. He's going for a Robo first this time. So we had Twilight, we had Stargate, now we have Robo. The only thing it's missing is like a proxy build, I suppose. The Robo, unfortunately for him, is going to be scouted from the Reaper. Not that it gives you the full information. There's still a couple of different things that can happen here. Some weird attacks included, like a War Prism that he didn't quite get the full scout of. It is going to be a Robotics Bay. I'm not thinking this is going to be just Colossus, so a slow build up. Not expecting a Disruptor drop, but is another option. A Viking is on the way. This is such a good move to have against a Robo because depending on whatever they do, weird or normal, a Viking's still probably going to be helpful. What's the one thing that's like the scariest that comes out of a Robo? I spoiled it. A War Prism. And a Viking's very helpful against that. So I like the immediate response to go into a Viking. He looks like he's going to swap off for Raven. No, that's for the Barracks, actually. Raven is certainly not a bad thing to try and accommodate here if you can, because it's effective against the scouting that they currently have, which is observer-based, and it's effective against the Colossus Interference Matrix. Hello, pretty damn good. But it is a very different build when you go for a Raven. That's 200 gas. That's a lot of time spent in a tech lab. So he's going to continue with what he had already planned on doing, which is looking a lot more like the last game, just not a medevac, it's a Viking. Cancel the Observer? Nah, he built 2. Third base on the way for Zest. There's a couple different things that you can get with Colossus, but you can't get all the things. When you see someone go Colossus, Double Forge, and Third Nexus at the time that he did, they try and do that on Disco Bloodbath, and they usually like die. So in this case, he goes for a third base here and doesn't get a forge. No upgrades on the way. It's gonna be his biggest weakness for a little while. And he might even push the upgrades off until he actually has charge. Yeah, okay, there we go. Same time. Which, it might be fine. You know, if he has his army together, he knows where Clem's gonna attack him. Colossus will be able to hold. Don't need an upgrade necessarily. But it's something that Clem's actually gonna have an advantage of, and I'm really driving this home because Clem had a noticeable lack of upgrades in the very first game. We'll see if he responds differently because it is Colossus this game, and not what usually is Double Forge with the style that Zest chose in the very first game. It wasn't Double Forge, but anyways, usually is. So this charge, and there is +1 attack. The Zealots in this case going to be just buffering for the Colossus, and then you want all the power to the Colossus. 3 has been the normal number. It used to be 4. What happened? What happened, Colossus? What happened, Protoss people? Why did it stop being 4 Colossus was the go-to, and now it's just 3? The 4th Colossus, did they ever do anything to you? I don't get it. But it actually is good, because then they usually go into Immortals, which I think is actually very good, as opposed to just having 4 Colossus. But, you know what? That attack's already here. And it's even faster because the medevac's not even here. It just now arrives. And while that was a little bit of a shock for Zest initially, he does get the force fields down in time. And will handle this. So no surprise, sucker, I'm going to get you Colossus. It got close. He almost lost a Colossus just with the late reaction, but He does save it, and will now go into other things with that Robo. Stalkers clean up that Viking. He can now join the rest of the army. Looks like the observer on the other side of the map was cleaned up. But he has observers looking for drops and any potential pincer moves. He is splitting his army, anticipating a drop, which, oof, sometimes is a really bad move. 2 Colossus looking very, very lonely with only force fields to really protect them. And Clem's entire army looks like it's actually coming through there. This is a double drop of Widow Mines. Rather, it is a drop of 2 Widow Mines, but not enough of an army to actually tackle that. And the warp-ins of charge lots, as charge is officially finished, will make that a little more difficult to pounce upon. So Zest can recollect his army. Now that the drop threat has been dealt with. It was just the Widow Mines anyways, and they run back home. Clem did expand into a forward position here, so he's going to be trying to both defend and attack from that. It can be nice, but now you also have like 3 different ways pylons can try and get you. Ugh, scary. Not that Zest has a lot of harassment going down here. He's got charge on his way to blink. He's trying to get to the +1 armor, but Clem will still have the upgrade lead, and he is trying to get to that storm. So Clem first trying to deal with the Colossus threat by building up the Viking count. With his 3 bases coming down pretty quickly, like pretty standard timing, he will be able to afford, yeah, there we go, getting a Ghost Academy as well. And he should have been able to afford getting to the double upgrades, but they are coming down a little bit later. Not perfectly synced up with +1 armor finishing, that's okay. We'll still have the upgrade lead anyway. The 4th base now here for Zest. With all of his upgrades, the Splash, the big units, the Storm, the Colossus, now out to play here. He can just focus on filling the rest of his army with anything he wants and actually maxing out. Which is very scary, because Clem is not getting as fast to that max out point. 4 Vikings at a time, pretty expensive. Not able to quite produce from all of his production alongside those 4 Vikings. And Ghosts also being a problem. They're pretty expensive, and he doesn't have any quite yet, despite being up against someone who does have Storm, who is going to have a decent bit of charge lot damage in there. And does Zest just win with this push? It might be so. Warpism should warp in, what, 10 more Zealots? I already did over here, looking for the attack to the right side. Clem manages to catch that, but then opens up the middle of the map, and he has to go down to choke against Storm with no ghosts. Also, force fields could have been a problem, but he does manage to get some of his army down there. It's actually not charge lots being warped in. Oh no, the army to the top side not doing very much there. SCVs have to be pulled. Vikings come in, but a little bit late. Colossus have already done so much damage, taking out all of the SCVs on the ground, and Clem actually stands no chance. Absolutely no chance. GG. Zest takes game number 3 to keep him alive in this series. That was like game number 2, except like the opposite player got the easy game. But I like that. Like, I would go back and watch what Clem did there and see where he really started to stall out.
Resubscription received. Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
Thank you very much, Marish, for the 56. Woo! That's a lot of months. 56 months. All the months. Damn. Good stuff. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to go back and see what Clem did necessarily like really wrong there, because it didn't feel like anything really happened on the front lines that made it that bad. He dived a bit for that Colossus, but he didn't actually lose that many units. He just was repelled. Were there any other big sacrifices that I missed? It's possible his 3rd CC really didn't come down at a good time. I mean, it was late. As weird as it is to say for someone who was as good as Clem is, you do still see some, like, for instance, like, oversaturation of the natural. This happens all the time in non-professional leagues, by the way. I'm not saying Clem did this or didn't do it, but every time I watch a Terran, especially versus Protoss, in, like, Masters and below, they will oversaturate their natural by, like, 10 SCVs and then build the 3rd CC, and I'm like, Could have been the CC before the 10 SCVs, but that's fine. And you do still see some of that. I mean, you get to this stage and it really does come down to like a lot of macro, but I think more than that, you know, it looked scary from the get-go because Clem was the one down in supply, despite being the Terran player, and you're like, well, that's not good. It was probably more being caught out of position. You know, that concave wasn't in front of his command center, it was kind of not a concave and also kind of behind it. His Vikings weren't already getting shots off on the Colossus, which is really important at dealing with those. Like, those I think were bigger. I think his army was fine against what he was up against, especially if he was able to crank out just like 3 ghosts is what you want. But his positioning was really thrown off. And I suppose Zest's timing was also pretty good. Like, right as Storm finished, he was already thinking of the attack. Yeah. Perhaps Zest will go ahead and do the same style again since it worked out. He is still on the ropes here. Someone's studying the Alpha Star replays. Yeah, in that case, it's not good though. Like, don't oversaturate your natural to hell and back before you grab a 3rd CC is what I'm trying to say. But we get in this thing, especially like when, and this is what you're supposed to do, guys. To improve, you're supposed to just non-stop build workers, okay? So, in a weird way, when I watch like the Diamond Terrans that are like 36 out of 16 on their natural building their 3rd CC, I'm like, yeah, yeah. Good job. Well done. Because, yeah, just building workers is such a vital part of being better at StarCraft. It's actually really silly. Just how much we can kind of boil down getting good at StarCraft is. But at the same time, you then have to learn to control your non-stop worker production. So that gets a little more difficult as you get into the ranks of Master. This is from a Wardi tournament. I'm not sure which one. I think it might be the Wardi... oh shit, actually I forget what it's called. It might be the same tournament that I got the Clem versus Fantasy replay from, but now I've forgotten what it's called. But just know that you can get the replay pack from Wardi. Subscribe to his channel, join his Discord, go to subscriber replay packs. He doesn't label them per tournament. Like Base TV labels them per tournament. Wardi does it like every month or something. He'll just compile all his replays. Anyways, back to the professionals who actually know so much about StarCraft. Certainly more than me. Although they still make mistakes, and I will continue to point out those mistakes. Zest. We have a tank opener from Clem, actually, so this is already a big difference. The tank opener, if he were scouting and saw that it was like a... I guess if he saw the proxy pylon, right, from... game number 1. This makes sense, but without any scouting saying like, I'm in danger, the tank is now something that I think is going to be aggressive. And then add on the Viking production as well, and you might be like, Viking, that's defensive. No. This key little trio here, this production setup, is actually one of the better attacks you could do when the Protoss were still not expecting to be attacked in the early game. This was like a year or 2 years ago at this point. Then it became the tank meta, and well, history is maybe something you guys know, maybe not. But the point is, this is still a nasty attack that can exist. And if you're on one of the shorter maps, and Ephemeron's a medium map, then it can certainly work. Now, this Adept Scout is good that it scouts probably a composition that is going to attack him, but bad that he lost 2 Adepts. Conundrum, isn't it? So Clem's going to move across the map, and Zest knows what he saw. He knows the intentions of the Terran players. He's going to start building shield batteries and start cranking out this Immortal even faster. More chrono boost. More. His production of gateways is not that big, but he might actually be okay with that if he can get to 2 Immortals. The Viking actually goes way far forward, and that is a key ingredient to the attack. Landed Viking at full health here is, I mean, it's damn good. It's like, I don't want to say it's as good as a tank, but it's pretty damn good. That's a nice catch right there. He also has a Stalker now coming from the backside, which could really help, but he's actually just going to go for the immediate break. Sometimes this is the best way to do it, but he's lost the Stalker. It's actually not even helping. What are you doing, buddy? Come on! But the Immortal seems to be enough as he target fires the tank. He does lose 7 probes, but a couple SCVs were brought to the front line as well. They lose their lives here, so not a complete one-sided trade. And in fact, with a lot of Zest units surviving, it looks like Clem's attack was kind of a failure. You know, the Immortal survived, the Stalkers survived, and hell, there's even one that wasn't even helping. Could have been even better for Zest. And he is up 7 workers. Now, that's actually not so bad. 7 workers, 8 workers is actually pretty okay when you have 2 mules. The worst thing about doing an attack like that and not finding extreme success with it is how late your upgrades are, your production facilities not too fast either, and your tanks, your tank production, while necessary to potentially keep you safe from any counterattack, gets worse and worse with time. Sometimes tanks look really great, I know, in the mid-game, but a lot of the time, you want to be on Widow Mines and other things. Medevac dropped to the main base, seemed to do some extra damage, so that's nice. Not expected from Zest. I wasn't even paying attention. So a nice little extra. Makes it a little bit better. Zest, ooh, going for that robo opening, having to defend, and then choosing to go into some disruptor drops once he's not supply blocked. That's a pretty bad supply block. That's a really bad one. Should eventually be disruptor dropping though. Cool stuff. Observer's gonna get into a nice position to scout what his opponent's got to defend, but also where the army is. Really nice for disruptor drops. Clem has shown no inclination to get a Raven, so no worry about that. Although a scan will still take out the Observer, I'm thinking more about interference matrixing the War Prism, which no disruptor necessary. Goes for the double Immortal drop on top of the Tech Lab. He just cancels it. He knows he's not gonna survive and puts on the other Tech Lab. That's a loss of about 20 seconds, I want to say. Not the worst, but also stalling out the other add-ons is pretty nice. You know, that's money lost with a cancel. It's also delay on like Marauder production, which you want to be pretty consistent with. Zest goes for a 3rd base and then does just go into Colossus, actually. Not even going to bother with the disruptors. Hey, if you get War Prism speed, I expect disruptors, but maybe he was always going to do this. Maybe, okay, yeah, maybe this was all he wanted to do with it. So be it. Double Immortal still doing some damage here, grabbing a 4th gas, and then overstaying their welcome a little bit. No reason to let them lose health. Almost grabbed the 3rd gas, and I guess that's what he was trying to do. Also a key tool in keeping track of the army since the Observer died. But he also knows that he canceled Stim, so there's not really going to be an attack until that's done. It is a faster upgrade now, thank the Lord. But still a pretty slow one, 100 seconds. It is not going to time out with combat shields, so there's some good news there. And Clem will still have a decent army supply, but he will be up against a pretty secure Zest. I mean, it's not the Colossus count that I'm necessarily worried about. It's going to be at maybe 3 by the time Clem gets across the map. I'm more worried that he's also going to have all these like other upgrades. He's going to have charge, he's going to have +1 weapons. But it is a good old-fashioned 2-base all-in, so I would be a little surprised not to see any SCV pull. That 3rd CC, if it does come down, will be quite late and will have to be on location. The 5 barracks first and foremost means there's going to be a lot of pressure coming to Zest, and it's all going to be pretty all-in-y. Pretty all-in-y. Tanks can help, as I said before, but sometimes they look terrible as the charges jump on top of them. No charge outs quite yet. They're now being warped in, and they don't actually want to go through that choke. No Immortals here to take out the tanks. I think Zest thought about it. He saw the late siege up, but was like, no, we'll be able to take care of them, and he's absolutely right about that. There are now 5 tanks in the front lines, and nothing to actually take them out of the equation of the fake Phoenix. 3rd Colossus is about to pop out. Immortals come back, but while they have their barriers again, they won't have a lot of health. Yeah, exactly. 1 shot. Oh, 2 shots takes out the 1 Immortal. And that one gets even lower in that health, but Zest is starting to really get up there on that Zealot count. He's actually going to come in from 1 angle, which is usually what the Terran wants, but Clem realizes it doesn't even matter. He just taps out. Knows that he's not going to stand a chance. Not a big enough army. And Zest takes the 4th game, leading into a game number 5. Ooh. You know, I looked at the replays before choosing this. I thought maybe whoever compiled the replays put in like spoiler games, miscellaneous games that actually have nothing to do with the series, but to keep it spoiler free. No, this actually goes against BO5. Especially after those first two games. I was like, oh, that's... Oh, what you doing there? But he's brought it back. He's brought it back. The last game will be on Winter's Gate. Smallest map we have. Let's jump into it. It's all tied up now. Clem had a couple of, well, I'm not gonna say easy games. He had one easy game. Zest had one easy game. And then they both have also had some pretty difficult games. Although last game, actually Zest might have had two easy games. Really handling all that pressure well from Clem. Identifying the build, responding correctly to it, and then having a pretty sweet time with the follow-up, just dealing with that, no problem. Clem is gonna want another easy game, I think. Something like that game number 2, please. But I doubt Zest's gonna open up the Stargate again, because that's what game number 2 was a Stargate opener, and it wasn't pretty. No. What's been working for him has been these robo openers. In the third game, Colossus worked out for him pretty well. In that fourth game, the last game, the ability to produce an immortal ASAP worked really, really well. That up against a tank compared to like 4 Adept shooting at a tank or 3 Stalkers shooting at a tank is so different, so much better. But the Robo Opener is slower, whether you're going into like Colossus or Immortals or whatever. It can be slower, it doesn't provide as much harassment opportunities sometimes. War Prism can, but then you actually have to get the units in the War Prism. Obviously it worked out pretty well last game with the double Immortal harassment, but it's usually not Zest's go-to. It seems like he does like playing around with those Stalkers in the early game and then massing charges in the mid with the Twilight Council-based openers. If it's working, it's working, and you're not going to stop doing Robo when you've just gotten your 2 games back. That's what I would think anyways. We're just going to wait and see. Clem has had his a little bit of mix-ups here and there. I would say usually I like going for an aggressive early push. You know, in a best of 5, mix things up. You still had 1 game to lose type deal. But honestly, that push that we saw from Clem, there's a reason it's not really popular anymore, it feels. And that might be unfair to say, because there's so many different circumstances that exist in PvT. You really can go for all the technology openers of the Protoss now and be, you know, pretty okay with your decision. But just meh. It doesn't feel as strong, even if it goes unscouted. But that is a key difference. Usually it can go unscouted. It's a little difficult to see. You keep that tank behind. They don't see what pops out of that starport. They don't see the starport at all. Suddenly the army's there before they even acknowledge there's an attack on the way. I mean, that's when it looks stupidly one-sided for Clem, right? So I shouldn't judge, but I am hopeful that Clem doesn't do it again, that's for sure. And I'm gonna go ahead and guess that he doesn't. Perhaps just another Wouldn't Mind drop into the fast 2 barracks. That fast stim worked out once for him. Didn't quite work out the second time. We'll see what his decision is based on the second barracks timing. Good adept denial of the Reapers. Also got that hop-up spot all nice and covered with a bunch of structures. Observer first from the Robo, safe way to go. Assuming that your opponent did in fact expand, and okay, technically Zest doesn't know that his opponent expanded, but I think he's figured it out. How is the new notebook running so far? I don't think you're talking to me. Never mind. Oh, I'm so hungry. You guys, I've been making this stew. I've made it 3 times in the last, like, 2.5 weeks, alright? It's from Budget Bites, and it's delicious, and this time I put it in a slow cooker. And I'm really, really, really excited to eat it after this broadcast. I'm, like, super excited to have food. Anyways, yeah, now I'm salivating. So slightly faster second barracks, but Will this? No, actually this is still fast enough to have that faster stim. Not gonna pair up all his upgrades all at once. Not quite. Robotics Bay again here for Zest. He might forego the warp prism speed this time. Just go straight into Colossus. What is the timing for this? Colossus. Third Nexus is on the way, so denying himself the upgrade in exchange for just the power unit. Observer is trailing that medevac, and he is trying to keep on top of it, which is delaying his Colossus production just the tiniest little bit. There we go. But he has fully covered himself against the medevac drop. It tries to boost in. It's going to boost right out. Just kidding. Doesn't want to lose the medevac for what is going to be pretty much no chance of probe kills. So keep that alive for later. Join up with the army, especially that medevac. One extra medevac can make a big difference. 2 Widow Mines can make a really big difference, although not typically against Colossus. Actually, you know what? This does seem a little bit fat. Like, they should pair up very, very close to each other. I feel like that second barracks was not as fast as some of the previous games, but I'm being very nitpicky right now. And not nitpicky as you did something wrong, nitpicky as in, like, very slight distinctions of build orders. There is definitely ability to start both of them at the same time, though. Well, anyways. Doesn't matter. Point is, he's gonna have all his upgrades by the time he moves in. Still not a big fan of the Raven openers. I would have liked to have seen an attempt. Like, the trend seems to be that Zest is gonna go for Robo after the victories. Keep going, hope for another victory, right? I feel like a Raven would be really cool to have against this. Not that I'm saying it's the hard counter, but sometimes it feels a little bit like a soft counter. Sometimes a Raven feels absolutely baller against someone who's gone for a Robo opener. Well, anyways. He's just gonna go for the good old-fashioned attack, try and get that concave. And the way that Zest has expanded to the top side, not to the middle, means that it's a bit longer of a rush distance, I think. Actually, I might be wrong about that. But anyways, but you don't have any choke to work with. And Colossus usually need chokes. A concave is their worst enemy. This is a little scary. Medevac's the... Oh, wow. Ooh, nice. Medevac was taking away the presence of the Stalkers, but they might just be able to come back in time to help out. In fact, they're not even necessary to help out. A couple force fields go down. A lot of Marines in this army are getting just, well, what is it, melted? There we go. Melted by the Colossus beams. And the Bio army is not going to be able to push through despite the, what is a tantalizing looking army, right? Like this, yeah, the sentries with force fields, you got to remember they got that ability, but that just looked like an army waiting to be pounced on. The Clem not able to actually get the damage done there. Nice defense from Zest, who is still prepared for a drop that is actually not on its way. His observer is going to reposition perhaps to see the middle of the map. Does it actually see that? Kind of sees the middle. Clem is now adding on his second starport. We're getting his third CC on location, as he should. Looks like there is some harassment to the top side. 4 probes go down to a single Widow Mine, perhaps, as the medevac gets away. Nicely done by Clem to perhaps recognize there was something really anti-air there. So it would be a bit of a freebie. Zest now has a cannon done, though. Seems to see that possibility and try and cut it off. But, ooh, speaking of possibilities, we finally do have a drop. Unfortunately, right over the observer. Zest is going to reposition his army. There we go. And warp in. He's got at least feedbacks here, which won't kill the medevacs, but will keep them injured and not healing. No drop possible. Clem is just going to probably be focusing on the production back at home, adding on his upgrades, his Ghost Academy. There's no opportunity to apply pressure. Don't try and force it. Try and get to a decent macro game. Try and get that decent counter. This is very similar to what was at game number 3. But Zest, will he have the same attack? No, not really. He had Blink, Storm, and +1 done when he attacked, I think. So if he attacks now, it will be faster, but without at least 2, sometimes critical upgrades. Certainly that +1 can help out. It might also hit as +1 armor finishes for Clem, but is Clem expecting this? He's got Marines looking for the attack. Nicely done right there. You got to do that if you really want to get good at this game. Have those spotters out on the map. And his Vikings are now going to be in position. A big change up from that game number 3 already. Having these Vikings in position is a huge difference. They could even try and go for that War Prism. Not a ton of Stalkers to help out. Certainly no Blink on those Stalkers. Not that Clem necessarily knows that. Widow Mine gets a great shot. Lots of shields taken away right there. Ghosts are on the way. Speaking of shields, needs to take away the energy from all the High Templars. They go for the Vikings and get a lot of damage done there. A couple Zealots to the left side trying to do some damage as well. He actually uses a snipe, which takes away the EMP opportunity of that Ghost. Was that the right move? Still a couple Storms left over. There's one. I think there's another one in there. There it is. But not really hitting the heart of the army. The Vikings also getting some decent damage done, but are being torn down. 3 Colossus still raining hell from above. And while the Concave is okay for Clem with a lot of Marauders in there, a couple Archons join the fight, and the Colossus still live, and Clem is forced to tap out. GG. Zest takes the 3-2 after falling down 0-2. I mean, one of those games was fantastic and, you know, cool whoever won that one. But the second game, I really thought Zest was just gonna do what he sometimes does and just lose unexpectedly early on in the tournament. But he brought it back. The Robo opening seemed to be a little trickier for Clem to deal with. Perhaps a mental block, perhaps just not being as comfortable against it, doesn't feel as much in control. I'm not sure. But when there's 2 games that you win, no Robo opening, versus the 3 games that you lose with a Robo opening, there might be a weakness there. Good on Zest to identify, be able to adapt to his opponent as well, not just only doing what I really think of him as, which is a Twilight Council blink charge guy. Cool little best of 5 there. And if you guys would like to see more of that, then you got to check out Wardi's channel, Twitch channel. He streams a lot of tournaments. He also does give his replay packs to subscribers, of which you could find that exact series in that replay pack. If you're like, that was an awesome build, I want to learn it. That's how you get it. That's going to end the stream for me, as the internet has been dropping